Hi, I'm Liz with the Missouri Star Quilt Company, and today I'm going to show you how to make the Trifecta bag from Emmaline Bags. The pattern comes with 3 styles and 2 sizes, so you can make 6 different bags from this one pattern. And it uses a wire frame to open and close, as along with the zipper. To make this Trifecta bag, I'm going to show you how to make the one with the handles. Once you know how to make this style, all the others are even easier. So to make this bag, you're going to need some main fabric and some lining. And this bag does use a wire frame to open and shut along with the zipper. You will need a 16-inch zipper. And for our accent fabric, I'm actually going to use this high-quality faux leather from Sally Tomato. This is the Cherry Pebble. You're going to need some interfacing, and you will need some fusible fleece. And then I'm going to use a chalk marking tool to mark that faux leather. It's much easier with some chalk. Also for the faux leather, I'm going to need a jeans needle. So I've got my machine threaded with one, and I've got my very favorite snips for cutting all of my threads. Then you just need the pattern. So when you open the pattern, it's not going to have measurements, it has templates. And when you first look at this, you might go, that is a lot of pieces. It is because it's all the pieces for all 6 bags. So we're actually only going to cut out the bag pieces that we need. So from this whole piece, as they're labeled very well, we're actually going to just cut out an accent for the top and bottom of this bag C, which is the one we're making, and then a lining piece. So see, it's much simpler than it looked right out the gate. So we'll need the lining, the top, and the bottom. They're also marked to place them on the fold, and I'm going to show you how to do that, especially with the faux leather, because it's a little trickier. There are a couple of other pieces that the pattern provides measurements for: the pocket and the straps. So you'll cut those out, but they're just rectangles or squares, and then you're good to go. So now we're going to get started with this. I'm going to show you first how to cut out this top piece. So I've got my strap, but I need to cut out, and this is where I'm going to use my chalk. What I want to do is line this up against a nice clean straight edge. You may need to straighten the edge of your fabric up, and then I'm marking around the outside with chalk. So I'm going to do the second piece because you need 2 of these, one for each side. So what I'm going to do is flip this over and line it up against my straight line. And then I'm going to mark to the edge. And then I'm going to mark down the straight line. Then I'm going to flip this. And you can see I made a little line at the bottom. So let me show you that here too. This little line tells me where the half ended, so I can line it back up with that and mark this edge. And this straight edge. And this doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to use our ruler to help as well. Once that's marked, I can put my chalk away, and I'm going to use my ruler to make sure that that line is nice and straight. So I'm going to line up against it. Now, because we marked with the chalk on the outside of the pattern piece, we're actually going to cut just barely inside the pattern piece. So that way it's the size of the pattern piece. So I can use the marks on the ruler along the edge of the leather and on the inside of that line. And now I'm good to go. And I can do the same down this center line. I'm going to use the mark on the long straight edge and mark the short straight edge along the edge of the faux leather. When I'm all lined up, cut. And now I've cut right along the line, and I've got the 2 pieces. Then I'll just use my scissors for the ends here. And it cuts very smoothly, but I'm going to just put the tip of my scissors where I want that to stop, and then cut inside the line, like so. Do that on the other side. It's even easier because we're all the way at the edge, so I'm just going to cut inside the line, like so. I want to save these end pieces because we can actually use them for the zipper pulls. Okay, so all the scrap is just these 2 little triangles. And we'll set these aside for when it's time to assemble the top. Similarly, you're going to line up on your main fabric and your lining fabric on a fold, and then you will cut out the shape of the template. I want you to notice that there is a little lip here on the bottom of the bag C, and that's so that we can line it up with the piece we just cut and have a nice 1/4 inch seam that then continues that beautiful line. So make sure when you're cutting out not to chop that little edge off. It's not the worst thing in the world if you do. The other thing is that these come folded, and if that bothers you, you can take an iron to them. Just iron from the back side so you're not smearing any ink, and that will flatten these out. And one more tip, when you're cutting, you can also use pins to hold this pattern down to your fold. And if you don't have pins, you can use pattern weights. Whatever makes it easy to cut out your pieces is what you want to use. Do notice that there's a grain line mark here as well. So that means that you want this not on a bias on your fabric, but your fold is also going to help you make sure that you're getting this on a grain line. It doesn't matter if it is with the width of fabric or if the length of fabric, as long as you're on a grain line so that it doesn't have too much bias and stretch when we go to sew the whole bag together. So that should help you get all your pieces cut out, and next we're going to start assembly. So the first step for assembling the bag is to make the handles. I'm going to use that faux leather to make the handles. So I've cut my strip, and I'm going to need to fold it. When you're using a cloth, like a quilting cotton for the handles, you're going to need to fold this end in. But because we're using the faux leather and it doesn't ravel, you can actually leave that unfolded, which is very handy because you can't iron the faux leather. So let's talk about the faux leather for just a minute. We're going to set up our machine a little bit differently than just a normal quilting cotton. Like I said, we're going to use that denim needle, so I've got that installed on my machine. We're also going to set our stitch length to a 2.5 or a 3. I like a 3 because it's a little bit longer and it's not going to perforate as closely together as a shorter stitch will, which means that this is going to have more strength overall and it's going to be easier to sew. So you want the denim needle and you want your stitch length set to a 3, and then last you're going to want to use a polyester thread. So our Missouri Star thread that's 40 weight is a polyester thread, and I've got a nice dark polyester thread on my machine and in my bobbin so that when I go to sew this leather, it's on both sides. So with that, I'm going to show you how to fold this up and get started. So again, we're not going to take an iron to this. We're just going to crease it by hand. And if you have a roller, you might find that handy here. I found that just using kind of the palm of my hand and the heel of my hand to just press a crease is enough for me to get what I need here. And I'm going to pull out a few quilting clips because I don't want to use pins on the faux leather either. It leaves a more permanent hole. So I'm pressing that to give myself the idea of where I'm going to go when I fold the next pieces in. So you can see that little bit of a valley. And what I want to do is fold in each side and then fold them together. And now I'm going to clip. And it's going to be a little awkward there. So I'm going to clip on the very end. And then I'm going to start clipping every couple of inches to kind of tell it where it wants to stay folded. And I can open this up again, and I can still see my little valley. Put my pieces together, and they're not overlapping or butting up. You need to give them a little bit of room. And we're just going to clip down the whole end of this. Okay. I'm going to clip off the end again. And sometimes I'll note that the end tries to poke out a little bit. And I'm just going to kind of massage it into place. And then it will ease in. It's actually really easy to sew with this material. It just looks bulkier because we can't press it down into the shape we want. So now I'm just going to stitch down each side of this on my machine, and that will hold it all in place, and I'll have 2 handles all done. Okay, so the next step is to assemble the fronts of the bags. So we're going to attach the top and the bottom, but first we're going to add a little bit of interfacing and stability to the main fabric. And one of the other things in the pattern is that you're going to cut this interfacing using the same template piece that you did the main fabric. But the first thing you're going to notice is that it's going to go all the way to the edge because it's the exact same size. So the pattern also tells you at this stage to go ahead and cut a 1/4 inch inside these lines. You're going to leave this top piece all the way to the edge, so you're not going to cut that one. You're going to cut a 1/4 inch off of all of this to give you more room so you don't have as much bulk in the seams as we put the bag together. So I've done that here. And we're just going to kind of eyeball and center that then between the sides. And you can see that that leaves more fabric and less bulk in between all of those seams. Then you'll just press it down, so it's sticky side down, and we'll just press it down according to the manufacturer's instructions. All right. So now that we have that fused, it's a little more stable, and now we're going to attach it to our faux leather. So we're going to line these up, and those little tabs will line up, so we'll be able to sew a 1/4 inch down this side. Now here's my best advice for you. When you're using an accent fabric like this faux leather, I want you to put this towards the bed of your machine and have the fabric towards the foot of your machine. Because if this is on bottom, the feed dogs are going to gather this up, and while that's a great look, it's not the look we're looking for this particular bag. So we're going to line this up and stitch right down the side, and then the pattern indicates we want to press towards the accent fabric. It's a problem when we're using this kind of faux leather. You can't iron leather, so that's not going to work. So in this case, when you open it up, you'll actually press away from the faux leather towards the main fabric, and then your top stitching will be along that edge. And that's going to look something like this. So we're pressing towards this side, and then I've top stitched. Then we're going to add a piece of fusible fleece to the back. And this is cut even a little bit smaller. She says to cut off about 3/8 of an inch. And typically she's going to have this piece go all the way to the top of this front of the bag. But again, because the faux leather is a different kind of material, we're actually going to stop right at that edge because it's already stable enough. So once you press this fusible fleece, you're going to press it right up to that edge. If you're not using this kind of accent material and you're using quilting cotton for the whole bag, you will want that fusible fleece to go all the way to the top because you want it all to have this nice body. Okay, now we're ready to get started on assembling the bag front to the handle. So I've got one side done, and what we're going to do now is attach the handle in these 2 positions, and then the whole side of the bag is complete. So to do that, we're going to go back to our pattern piece, and there's an indicator on the template for where the handle placement goes. My first thing is that I'm going to flip this over and draw in Sharpie on the back, because while that handle placement helps me on this side, I'm going to need it on the other side when I flip this over. So do that first, and then what you're going to do is line this up on the edge of the bag, like so. And then you're going to come in and place your handle on the edge. Now I like to have this kind of double-sided towards the inside of my bag, so I'm going to place it that way. And then if you're using quilting cottons, you can pin this in place, but again, I don't want to use pins on the faux leather, so I'm going to clip it right here to the edge, and that's actually going to hold it fairly stably for this couple of inches. Again, if you're using quilting cottons, you can put some pins in here, and then we're going to take this part away, and what we're going to do is draw a box and then the X lines. So let me show you just on a piece of paper what we're going to do with the stitch line before we get to the machine. So our stitch line to make our box with our X is going to look like this. We're going to start at the bottom and stitch up the side. Then we're going to stitch across the top of the box, down, and make the square. Once we get here, we're going to aim for that top of the box. We'll go across the top, which will reinforce those stitches, and then we'll come down to finish the X. And that's where we'll cut thread at the bottom of the box. So let me show you how we do that on the machine. Okay, so we're going to form a box. We want to stop about 1/2 inch to make a nice square. So I'm not going to come all the way up to here. I'm going to stop about here. So we start the box. And with the needle down, we're going to pivot and just kind of shove the handle through so it's not in the way. We're going to come across the top. When we get to the stitch line from before, we're going to follow it down the other side. And then we're going to finish making the box across the bottom. Now we're going to pivot a lot of the way around and aim towards the top corner of this box. Pivot back around to reinforce the top of our square. And then one more pivot to finish the X, and we'll stop in this bottom corner. So we'll back stitch just a little bit, and one side of the strap is on. We'll just cut all our threads, and then we'll repeat on the other side. So to attach the other side, we're going to flip that over. We're going to have used our markings, and we'll make sure this isn't twisted when it comes down. So you want to make this U shape so the inside is the same. Place it, clip it, and stitch it as before. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to come back and show you the rest. Okay. The next step of the bag is to make the pockets and add them to the lining piece. So we're going to make the pockets and then attach them to each side of the lining. So the first thing is, again, the interfacing is a little bit smaller than the pocket square itself. And then all you're going to do is fold this in half. And you can give it a press or a finger press. And we're going to leave an opening at the bottom of the pocket. So we're going to sew an L shape, leave a space, and sew the other L shape. That's going to look like this, where I still have my opening here, unsewn to turn the pocket correct side out. But first I'm going to cut and grade the corners. So using my favorite little clips, I love the little unicorns, we're going to cut the corner and grade it away. So usually you're going to cut at kind of a 45-degree angle when you're snipping corners. But I'm going to cut a little bit longer to take more bulk out of. And then down here as well, I'll first clip the corner, being careful not to cut through my stitches, but then I'm going to grade both sides of that so there's less bulk when I do turn it. And you can see here it wasn't perfectly done, but we're just going to clip away the bulk and the pocket itself will still look really nice. Okay, so take away all my little scripts and scraps. Now I'm going to turn this and we're going to poke out the corners. You can use your favorite tool for this. Some people swear by a purple thing or a chopstick. Some people use a pencil or the eraser end of a pencil. I live a little dangerously and I keep my closed snips and use them just very gently into the corners. I'll show you how I do that. So once this is flipped all the way around, being sure to hold them so they are not by the handle so I'm not accidentally opening and clipping something, I'm going to use the point of this to press into the corner. So I'll press along the seams very gently, continue to press out until I get that nice crisp corner. So do that on all four, and then we're going to top stitch across the top. I'm going to fold the bottom edges in. So you can see I'm going to fold the fabric up to where that interfacing is, and I can give that a nice press, but I don't have to stitch that closed yet. Where I want to stitch is across the top where that fold was and give it a nice top stitch. Then I'm going to add it to my lining. So I'm going to find the center and give it a little finger press here and find the center and line those up. And then the pattern gives you a measurement for how far this distance is from the bottom to the bottom of the pocket. Then we'll just stitch along these sides, which will enclose that final seam and leaves a really pretty edged pocket. Once you've done that, we're ready to go to the next step. So the next step is to prepare the zipper. So we're going to put zipper ends on. And the pattern does recommend that you use the same material you used for the accent. So we've saved the pieces from our top, and I'm going to rough cut them into a couple of rectangles. And the reason is, again, because these are going to finish without raveling, we don't need to worry about tucking in the edges of the fabric. If you're using fabric for these pulls, you will want to fold in 1/4 inch all the way around so you have a nice, neat, no raw edges zipper pull. But I'm going to get away with this, and I'm going to use my scissors and just cut a nice sharp end off, removing those triangles. Okay. You could also line this up and use your rotary cutter. Nice and square. And I'm going to simply fold these over the edges and stitch them down. So I'm going to pull the zipper away, and I am going to lay this to where the metal is at least inside where my stitch line is going to be on the edge. Then I can fold this over, take it to the machine, and the first thing I'm going to do is stitch along this edge to secure this, and I can just stitch right off the edge. Then I will come back and make the U shape that finishes the zipper pull like this. So let me show you how I do that. So we're here at the machine, and you could use a double-sided tape to hold your zipper in place and to hold the top piece of the faux leather down. I'm going to be brave and live dangerously, and I'm just going to stitch across the top. So I'm holding the zipper pull together with this hand, and I'm holding the leather down with this hand. right off the edge. Okay, so now I'm going to make the U shape, and then I'll cut all my threads. So I'm going to put my foot right along the edge of the zipper tape, and you can backstitch at the beginning. I'm going to try to pull my threads away so they don't all get caught. Backstitch, and then we'll stitch down, stop right before the fold, pivot, stitch across the bottom of the fold, and then finish our U shape coming up on the other side of the zipper tape. And then we'll backstitch at the end, and now we can trim. So first I'm going to trim all my edges, all my threads, and then I'll be able to trim this edge. So now that I've created that shape, I can trim away the edges. And what's handy about using this oversized piece is because we can leave raw edges on the faux leather. We get nice crisp edges, and we don't have to try to maintain all 3 edges while we're sewing. So I'll just trim that down, and we've got a zipper pull. We're going to repeat the same on the other side, which is even easier because you don't have to hold this together. You'll just fold it up so that it's just past the metal, so you're not running into the metal when you stitch it down. And repeat the same step. And then you will have your zipper with your zipper pulls. So as we start to put the whole bag together, we're going to use the zipper as that kind of middle piece. And what we're going to do is have some marks, and you can refer to your pattern for where these marks are placed. And we're going to start by centering the zipper, and then we're going to stitch from the center to the mark, and then we'll do a little tricksy bit. Then we'll come back to the center, go to the mark, do another little tricksy bit. So your order of operations is your lining pocket side up, then your zipper right side up with the zipper on the left. We're going to kind of center that. I'm going to eyeball it. If you want to get more precise, you go for it. I'm just going to center that up and clip it. So once you've clipped your zipper, we're going to add this right side down, but your handle wants to be in the way. So what I'm going to do is fold it pretty close to the X and clip it so it stays out of the way. Because it's a thicker material and it's harder to fold around. If you've used a quilting cotton for your handles, they'll flip down out of your way nice and easy. So I'm just going to kind of press that down with my fingers and then line this top up and clip it in place. You'll notice that I've made my marks on this side, not the front, so that I know where to stop and do my little tricksy move. So I'll show you that tricksy move in just a second. So now I've got this clipped. If you're someone who needs all your clips to go the same direction and have that nice flat bottom on the bottom, you want the red side or the colorful side up. It doesn't bother me to have them in different directions, so I'm going to leave them as they are. But I am going to start in the middle and come over here to my mark, and I'm going to show you that tricksy part I keep talking about. So I've got my zipper foot on my machine, and I am going to make sure I have that 3 stitch length, and I'm just going to travel along. I can feel it that the zipper is right here. So the reason I'm starting in the middle is that the pattern indicates that you're going to get a better result on these zipper edges if you do so. And I found that to be very true. So I am not just going to go from one side to the other because I need to do this tricksy part at the end. And it's easier to do it with the zipper and the pull facing you rather than trying to do it in the back with your back hand where you can't see it. So when I get to this line, I'm going to stop my stitching. And again, you'll refer to your pattern for where that mark is. I'm going to, with my needle down, stop, take this clip out, and then I'm going to pull the zipper away till I reach this mark. Then I'm going to stitch right off the edge. And I'm going to back stitch at the very end. So now the zipper was pulled away. And the reason that mark is there is so that it's even on both sides. So let me show you how we'll do that from the middle to the other side. I'm going to flip the bag over, and I'm going to start in the same spot. There's a little overlap of stitching in the center. And again, I can feel this, and it's also why I'm not too bothered about which way the clips are facing. And I'm looking for my mark, which is right here. And that's where I'll stop. With the needle down, I'm going to pull the foot up so I can pull the zipper away, and I need to pull it to that mark. So you can see there, I'm going to pull it to that mark so it's even on both sides, and I'm going to stitch right off this edge. Put my foot down, and then back stitch. Okay, so now we're going to roll that back and add the zipper to the other side. So we're not going to iron, right? Because we have that faux leather. So we are going to kind of gently pull the zipper away, and you can see it's a clean finished edge on both sides where there's that seam because of the way we did that. So gently pull the zipper away and kind of finger press that down. And now we need to add to the other side. So I'm going to walk you through that because again, it can be a little tricksy for your brain for exactly where everything goes. So again, we start with our lining on the bottom with our pocket facing up. And then we're going to add the zipper, which happens to be attached to the half of the bag. And instead of the zipper being on the left, it's now going to be on the right. And you may be wondering if you're supposed to top stitch this yet. Don't. We're going to top stitch at the very end to give ourselves the pocket for the wire frame. So do not top stitch yet, do not iron yet. But we will take this zipper tape, line it up on the top here, and then we will fold our handle down again and line this up with the zipper tape, and we'll do the same thing to assemble this half of the bag. So I'm going to do that and meet you back here to show you the next step. Okay, so now I've attached the zipper to both sides, and I'm kind of pressing that away from the zipper. And it's not yet time to release the kraken, so we're going to leave the handles in place. We're going to actually fold the two exterior pieces together. And we are going to fold the two lining pieces together, using the zipper as a different kind of fulcrum now. And we're not going to stitch these corners yet, but we are going to stitch down one side, folding the zipper in and away. And we're going to sew down this side and down this side. We're going to take a slightly, and I mean slightly, deeper seam on the lining so that it fits inside the main bag fabric really cleanly. So if you have, for example, a 1/4 inch seam here or a 1/2 inch seam here, you'll have just an extra 1/8 of an inch seam on this lining side. Then we're going to sew both sides, tucking the zipper in, and we're going to sew across both bottoms. But on the lining, we're going to leave about a hand's width so we can turn the whole bag at the very end. The other important thing to do here is open your zipper at least halfway. And that will also help you go ahead and clip the zipper away from your side seams. Okay, so we're going to sew down this side, a little bit deeper seam here, across the bottom leaving a hand's width here, and across this seam with a deeper seam on the lining. So I'll do that and join you right back here for the next step. All right, so I wanted to show you what happens at these seams while I'm doing this side. I'm taking a larger seam on that lining, and when I get up here to where I'm going to transition, I'm going to pause with the needle down, then I'm going to turn and line up these two seams so I have a nice clean bag when I flip it. Put my presser foot down, and I'm taking a slightly smaller seam as we go through this side. And then I'll just stitch right off this end. All right, so now you have something that looks like this, and we're going to reach through that space in the lining and turn it. But first we want to go ahead and box the corners. So I'm going to use that to help me pinch these where I want them to go. So I'm going to match up the two seams and have them go in opposite directions. And we're just going to use the same seam allowance right along that box edge. Okay, so you can see they nested right there, and we'll just stitch along that edge. When I'm doing box edges, sometimes my machine gets angry at that little corner, so I'll start just a little bit in and then back stitch off the edge and come back in. Then it doesn't try to go down into my machine. So if that's something that troubles you, try that trick. And then back stitch at the end. And then the pattern also has us make a second line of stitching when we're doing this, which really reinforces this corner. So just inside my straightish line, I'm going to make another straightish line, about 1/8 of an inch or so. And that reinforces it. It doesn't need to be backstitched if you don't feel like it. And that's what we're going to do on all 4 of the corners. Again, I can reach in through that lining to help me pinch that together, or you can just pinch it from the outside. And I want to make sure my lining on the bottom is going the same direction, so in this case, pointing that way, and my side seam is going to point the other way so they nest together, and I will stitch along. So do the same here as I do on the bottom of the lining of the bag. Then we're going to flip it inside out, so come back in just a second. And remember how we took a slightly larger seam on the lining in general, you're also going to take a slightly larger seam on boxing the bottom. So we'll nest it all up, get it in place. And you can use a pin or clip. And we're kind of muscle the bag into place and just stitch along that edge with that little bit bigger seam here on the lining. So now that you have all your corners boxed, we're going to reach in here one more time. And I did add reinforcing stitching to the lining as well. I'm going to reach in here and kind of pull for those handles. I'm going to release those bad boys and we pull this right side out. Just kind of gently pull all that through, and I can take all my little clips off. Just kind of gently roll it through that opening in the lining. Got 2 more clips holding those zippers out of place. And this is also why we left the zipper open. So go ahead and press the corners with your fingers to press out those boxed corners on the bag. Don't worry about the lining yet. And then what we want to do is finish this lining. So we're going to tuck in, you can see that, the hem, and just kind of gently pull it taut You're not trying to yank it open. And we're going to just use a very, very scant hem to stitch that closed. You can close it by hand if you prefer. I'm just going to use the tiniest little stitch on the edge to close up that opening in the lining. So you can see now that is closed right there on the edge. All right, so now the lining's going to press down. This is why I didn't need to worry about pressing those corners out. And we're going to pull the zippers out of the way again. So I'm going to press the lining down into these same corners. And I just kind of use my 2 fingers peace sign and press that into place. And then we're going to kind of pull the zipper like so. And what we want to do is now top stitch around twice. So we're going to press that lining in using our fingers to kind of press it down in a way and tug gently at the zipper teeth. And then what we're going to do is go around very close to this edge. So I like to still use my zipper foot because it helps me stitch right on the edge of this. And I'll use my hand behind it, not to pull, but to gently hold that in place. And then my hand in front to kind of keep my finger pressing this away from the zipper teeth so that I get a nice clean line. So let me show you what that looks like on the machine. All right, so you can see my needle is just inside the faux leather, and I'm going to let it kind of run along the teeth here. And one more time, I'm going to use this finger to press the lining away and kind of pause every couple of inches. I'm only going to worry about this much space at a time. And that's how I'll get a nice, neat top stitching. So I'll kind of roll the bag around. Now I'm just going to worry about what fits on my machine. So I'm going to press the lining away, and then right along the edge. So we're going to go around the whole thing that way. And when you get to the zipper, there's a little trick as well. So I'm going to open the zipper all the way. And again, press it away. Top stitch. And I'm just kind of rolling the bag around and repositioning it. But here's where the fact that we kind of pulled the zipper away and went off the edge has created a different seam. So I'm going to press that away, but I can't tug on the zipper for help. So I'm going to kind of hold that with my thumb and finger as we get close to that spot. Okay. Now I need to not stitch over the zipper, so I'm going to press it away and get the next side started. But I'm going to pause at that seam to pivot, because you can see it kind of has a little bit of a shape to it. So I'm going to pause right at that center seam and pivot. Needle down. I'm going to pull the foot up, reposition the bag, and then I go back to my first method of smoothing the lining back, and we'll continue on. So I'm going to kind of pull, you see there's a shape. You see I'm pulling this away in the back a little bit to let it pivot to come down this edge. So I'll put the foot down, and I'm not tugging, but I'm going to very gently guide from the back until we're on the zipper tape again. So it's not hard, you just have to have a little patience and just kind of guide it a couple inches at a time. all the way around the bag. All right, so once you've gotten all the way around, I'm going to trim threads, and then we need to make a second top stitch to create the lining for our wire frame. So you refer to a pattern for it to come in, but you're going to come in and you're going to find a spot on the bed of your machine. If you don't have one, you can use masking tape or something to create a nice line for your zipper to follow along so that you keep this nice and straight. I'm going to use this little line for mine. This one's much easier because you don't have to worry about any of the zipper. You just want the zipper to follow along the line you've chosen or your masking tape border. But I'm still just going to go a couple of inches at a time. And stop with my needle down. And when I get to this corner, I'm also going to stop and pivot the bag again. Okay. See, it's a gentler pivot this time, but you can see because of the angle why you got to do it. And watch that your zipper doesn't get caught up on your needle here. We'll go all the way around the bag. So now that you've got your top stitching real close to the zipper and the second pocket lining, we've made the pocket that we are going to slide the wire frame into. Okay, but it's fully enclosed. How are we going to get this in here? Well, the last step is to choose a side, and it doesn't matter which one. We're going to go to the bag lining, and then we're going to unpick a few of the stitches between those two seams we just did inside the bag lining. So we'll just come in with the seam ripper and unpick a couple of stitches. This is another reason that that 3 length is your friend. Okay, so now that pocket's open, and we can slide in our wire frame. So pocket number 1, we're going to scoot it around until we can feel that this edge has kind of hit over near this seam. Slide it around, and then this edge will tuck right in. And she does say, if you're worried about it, that you can tape or glue these little rubber edges on. And then tuck that right in. So 1/2 wireframe in, second half just goes the other direction. Okay, so we're going to use the same opening that we seam ripped, but now we're going to go the other direction. So you can slide the first bar a little bit away, and then you're going to just slide this one right in and around just like before. Here we go. Tuck it around. And it's going to end up meeting its partner on this side. And then it'll tuck right in. And again, you can glue the little tips on. And you have the finished bag. You can choose to just tuck this in or hand stitch that closed again. And the first few times you close your bag, you're going to want to close the wire frames first, just kind of pinch them together, and then slide your zipper shut. After you've done this a couple times, the faux leather kind of gets a muscle memory, and it will do it on its own. But the first couple times, you're going to want to close that wire frame first and then zip. And just like that, we've got a finished bag. And you can see it holds plenty. So this is how we make the Trifecta bag from Emmaline Bags. Thanks for joining me on this tutorial from the Missouri Star Quilt Company.